Once my talk is over in about 2 hours, we'll go right around the corner and hit up lunch. No, this is normally a 45-minute talk, guys, but I'm going to compress it down to about 20 minutes. So there's going to be gaps in what I talk about, but hopefully at the end of this session, you'll at least have the framework to put together a ransomware protection, compliance, and most importantly, a digital resiliency strategy. So I'm Steve Tcherchian, Chief Product Officer and CISO at XYPRO Technology. Our main focus is on mission-critical systems and workloads. So a lot of the examples I'm going to be talking about are extracted from the mission-critical computing space. You guys have seen tons of stats over the last couple of days. I'm not going to bore you with any more, but we all know with MTTR, mean time to response, mean time to identification, mean time to containment. We're all familiar with what the numbers look like. But I'm going to shine the spotlight on three of the metrics here. First one being that 75% of breaches involve attack surface exposure. What does that mean in a nutshell? We're not implementing best practices. We're making it too easy for threat actors to walk in right through the front door. And I'll talk about some examples. Also, coupled with that, 40% of IT assets go unmonitored. Just think about all of the assets in your environment. Do you have security cameras? Do you have integrity monitoring? Do you have all the necessary tools to know exactly what's going on every single system in your environment? I can attest to you that most of the customers I interact with, the answer is no. There's a large swath of systems that have no visibility, that they have no visibility into. These can be legacy systems, these can be other sensitive systems that carry sensitive information, but whatever the reason, the entire ecosystem is not properly visible to them. And then this is a statistic that keeps increasing, but 96% of backup repositories are targeted in cyber attacks, especially ransomware attacks. And I'll talk about why that's important now. So on top of all of that, about keeping our environment secure, we're having to deal with these as well. Is all these different regulations and compliance frameworks and things that we need to do. Now, you guys know, compliance does not equal security. Security does not equal compliance. Just because you're compliant doesn't mean it's secure. Just ask that company, the resorts company in Las Vegas that got hit about a year ago. But all of these regulations are still putting pressure on us. We've got to comply with these. When we talk about compliance, it's really looking backwards, meaning these are the lessons we learned. These are the things that we need to do to prevent what happened in the past from happening again in the future. These are critically important activities. But because you're focused on this, most organizations are treading water because once one audit is done, the next one comes along and the next one comes along. And they can't keep their head up above water long enough to start focusing on securing their environment. So all of this creates pressure on us, on our teams, on our organizations. These guys know this. They understand that we don't have the resources, the tools, the experience to keep up with their type of sophistication. So ransomware has shot to the top of the list when it comes to the types of cyber attacks that organizations are dealing with. And it's the same type of ransomware attack that's been there for the last 10 years. Now, by a show of hands, has anybody ever experienced a ransomware attack, either at home or within your company? Okay, couple of you. I'm glad it's not a lot more, because it is a very sinking feeling. Once you see things aren't working, you look into a particular directory and you see that file asking for a ransom or what to do next. Most organizations stop in their tracks. They don't know what to do. I'm often brought in as an advisor on these types of incidents, and I remember one incident in particular. It was a large real estate holding company out of Beverly Hills, California. They were servicing tens of millions of dollars worth of homes. I mean, we're talking celebrity homes. We're talking high-end mansions. There wasn't a property in their portfolio that was less than $10 million. They got hit with a ransomware attack. They didn't know what to do. They couldn't even spell ransomware. The attackers asked for Bitcoin. They didn't know what to start. They didn't even know what Bitcoin was or what to go about getting it or paying them. None of this stuff. So we got brought in. Of course, they didn't have backups. Backups weren't working properly. Their IT team had set something up but never tested those backups. This company was brought to its knees where for the next 30 days, all of their transactions were done on pen and paper. They're handling properties worth $30, $40, $50 million and doing it on pen and paper because they got hit with a ransomware attack and didn't know what to do. So for a long time, we've been trained to say, back up your data, you'll be fine. If you get hit with a ransomware attack, you can at least restore the data and you don't have to pay the ransom. It's not the case anymore. Once that payload, that malicious payload gets into your environment, one of the first things they're going to be doing is targeting your backups. They're going to be targeting your ability to restore your data and not pay the ransom. They don't want that. So they're going after your system restore disk. They're going after any remote backup repositories you have. If you've got connected storage, all of that's going to be targeted first before anything, any indication of ransomware is ever launched in your environment. They're going to do everything they can to make sure that they get paid. And it's even gotten sicker than that. They're also exfiltrating data now. They're taking your company data, sifting through it, creating a profile of your employees, of your executives, of others within your company, and then launching another type of campaign that targets them and starts harassing them at home. They start harassing your executives at home, telling them, I know where your kids go to school, I know this about you, I know that about you, trying to put pressure on the executives to go force the company to pay the ransom to make the attack stop. So it's gotten much, much worse over time because, again, the attack surface is wide enough. We're just letting them walk through the front door, and they're able to do these types of things. So what can we do about it? Scary world we live in. I'm hoping you guys got scared enough, but not enough where I'm going to show you, give you some tools and tips and tricks on what we can do about it. Everybody's heard about zero trust, and I get this question quite often, what does zero trust mean? Well, we've been conditioned for years that proper security is everything outside of our perimeter is bad, everything inside is good. So once somebody comes up to the front door, presents their credentials, we let them in and they're safe to move around wherever they need to within our environment. There was an analogy used yesterday during the keynote talking about you can let somebody into your house, but then they've got free reign over going into your bedroom, going into bathrooms or your closets or various other parts of the house. That's what security has been traditionally, is present your username and password to the VPN, you're authenticated, great, you've got access to whatever you need. Not the case anymore. Ransomware changes the game because that type of authentication doesn't protect against credential theft, insider attacks, lateral movement once somebody's in. It doesn't protect against phishing, where a lot of these malicious payloads are getting inserted into an organization from. Malware, all of these are fair play. Even if you've got a VPN and a firewall and all this cool stuff that I hear about all the time, that's not zero trust. Zero trust means even if you've authenticated yourself into the environment, I'm going to continue authenticating and re-authenticating you every time you try and access something. And I'm not just talking about authentication with a username and password. I'm talking about a multitude of other factors that you would use to validate that that person is who they say they are. So these can be variables like what operating system are they using, what antivirus version is installed on it, where are they coming from, their IP address, other types of geolocation, their firmware on their system. All kinds of entropy can be thrown into this to validate that that person is who they say they are. Because I can lift credentials off the dark web right now and log in to your VPN. Let's say that's all you've got. If your VPN only allows username and password authentication, I've got the keys to walk in right through the front door. Zero trust changes that game, where it's not just a username and password. Obviously, I'm hoping everybody's got multi-factor authentication turned on everywhere that they can. But then Zero Trust also implements another layer on top of that where multiple other variables and entropy are being validated. And that's being done every single time. Okay, so the next topic is going to be on digital resiliency. We've talked about Zero Trust and how we build a Zero Trust model. Again, guys, that was only a 2-minute, 3-minute explanation. Like I said, this talk's normally 45 minutes, so there's going to be gaps in what I talk about. But all of this is to lead towards how do we become resilient. And resilient means keeping our operations online whenever any type of disruption happens. This can be a weather disruption, this can be a workforce stoppage, this can be whatever. But in most cases, it's going to be ransomware. Just like the example I gave about that real estate firm in Beverly Hills, it's going to be ransomware. So how do you survive a ransomware attack? And unfortunately, most companies' resiliency strategy has been thus far, just unplug everything. Now, coincidentally, it was exactly a year ago this week when a resorts company in Las Vegas got hit with a ransomware attack. Now, I don't have time to go through the whole story, but really, in short, they didn't pay the ransom. What they did is they took down all of their systems. They unplugged everything. They even unplugged their mail servers where they couldn't see the ransom demands from the attackers. So that was their strategy. We're not paying the ransom. We're going to unplug everything and then figure out how to get everything back online later. That strategy cost them, at the end of the day, $130 million instead of the $15 million or $30 million ransom that was being asked for, and they were offline for over a month. So some systems, some critical systems were back online within 7 to 10 days, but most of their environment took over a month to get back online at a cost of $130 million. The LAUSD, the Los Angeles Unified School District, got hit with a ransomware attack a couple of years ago. Their strategy was the same. They didn't know what to do. They didn't have a digital resiliency strategy in place. They unplugged everything. My wife's a school teacher, and for a week, everything, again, had to be done with pen and paper. Attendance had to be done that way. All of the kids' work had to be assigned that way. They couldn't use their computers to log into their emails to know what their homework was. So they were having to go to Kinko's or FedEx and print out homework to give to the kids. I remember my wife going down at 8 o'clock at night to print out homework so she could give the kids the next day. That's not a resiliency strategy. So if you're familiar with the NIST cybersecurity framework, they talk about these 5 pillars, and this is a great starting point. This isn't the end-all be-all, but if you're trying to figure out how does resiliency fit into my organization, the NIST cybersecurity framework version 2.0 is a great place to start because it tells you the kind of areas of focus of what to do first, what to do second, what to do third. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go into detail into all of them, but I do want to highlight the identification piece first. This is something that's often overlooked, is you've got all these vendors out there that say, we've got all these cool solutions that'll protect you against ransomware and all these various other cyber attacks, and if you buy our solution, implement our solution, you'll be protected. If you ever hear that, turn around and walk away from that person. Because a real digital resiliency strategy starts with the identification piece first. If you don't know what you're trying to protect, how do you know how you're going to protect it? You can't. If you don't know if you're holding cardholder data, if you're holding personal identifiable information, if you're holding other types of sensitive data, and where it is, how do you know what you're going to protect and how you're going to protect it? So start with the identification piece first. That will create a roadmap for you on how to implement security controls when it comes to the hardening and protection phase. So you've identified your assets, you know where your weak spots are, you know what your attack surface looks like. Now you've built out a roadmap where you can take a framework or a regulation like PCI DSS and map the controls to what you have into your environment. Now you can harden the system based on what the environment actually looks like, not what some cybersecurity vendor is trying to sell you. Right? Like this is an area I see all the time, is buy our monitoring tool, buy our detection tool. Again, with the first 2 pieces not being done, the identification and protection piece not being done, you can't put up the security cameras. You can't just go in put the security cameras up and think you're protected. This is going to give you a ton of false positive information, and it's going to send your team down rabbit holes chasing incidents that may not actually be incidents. Now, the one thing I do want to highlight, though, and this is something, unfortunately, that I see not enough of, is file and system integrity monitoring. This is a requirement for PCI DSS, has been for quite a while, but unfortunately, I'm seeing this not implemented as much as it should be. In terms of cybersecurity protection and giving you the best bang for your buck to reduce your attack surface, it's really multi-factor authentication and file and system integrity monitoring. File and system integrity monitoring is going to tell you whenever something changes on your system. It can be a file, can be a configuration setting, can be a user being added to the system, whatever. If anything changes from the baseline, you're going to know about it. Now, going back to my statistic, about 40% of IT assets are unmonitored. This is why. The file and system integrity monitoring, for whatever reason, is not implemented or doesn't exist on those systems. And this is often the case, this is true, often the case for legacy systems, for larger, more complex systems. I mean, do you know, is anybody monitoring your SAP HANA? Is anybody monitoring your nonstop systems? Is anybody monitoring your Stratus or other ZOS? Do you have the right level of file integrity monitoring on those systems? The answer is often cases no. But then once you have that, context is key. Context allows you to take data and turn it into information, and then information becomes actionable. Just taking data for the sake of taking data and performing an action, again, is going to send you down a rabbit hole. So I'm just going to skip over a couple of slides because we're over time, guys, and I'm hungry. I'm sure you guys are as well. But really, this all comes down to automation. There's just not enough resources in our companies, in our teams, to keep up with the bad guys. So the more we can automate this process, the more it's going to give us a fighting chance to be able to keep up with what's happening out there. Reporting, I got one too many customers that are spending an immense amount of manual effort creating report after report after report, evidence production, what have you, to satisfy the auditor's requests. It's too much of a manual effort, takes too much time from the team. That way, they cannot focus on proper cybersecurity measures. They're constantly chasing their tail when it comes to compliance reporting. Automation also modernizes your cybersecurity resources. It turns them superhuman because the machine can do it much faster than any of us can. The velocity, variety, and volume of data is only increasing. We can't keep up with it. The machines were built for it. Tom's talk this morning was focused on exactly that. It's the evolution for the next 50 years is going to be this. Let's start taking advantage of it now. So again, guys, I know I rushed through that. I hope that was useful, at least gives you some things to think about. I'll be around this afternoon. Please connect with me. Tag me on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to continue the conversation. I'll be around at lunch if you want to grab me and you want to talk about this a little bit more. Be happy to open up a little bit more, all right? With that, appreciate everybody's time. I know it's lunchtime, so thank you all.